Why, hello everyone, I'm here, I'm Hollow Knight. We have a lot to get through today. I'll try and speed through it so it's not actually 30 minutes, but it's about a little over twice as long as the other stuff we've done so far. So this is the intermediate period. It's all one huge thing because really trying to split it up into different periods wouldn't be too accurate, I think, but we will be putting it into parts. So we're going to talk about exclusively early February to mid-April for right now. And in order to really get a feel for what this era was sort of like, we have the three main barriers of Stranded Isle, which are sub 580%, sub 4 boss kill percent, and sub 340 dream percent. Those were like the three big dogs that if you got them, by golly, you're good at the video game, okay? Just even one of them. Um, and people would get them, or at least get really close to getting them, and we'll be talking about that. We'll be spreading it out across multiple parts, or multiple parts. I can pronounce stuff well, I swear. But yeah, just keep these three in mind, and you can read there's a bit of a thing, but you don't have to know that, and these barriers will pop back up in the future. It's completely okay. You can just sort of put that in your brain, and we can just move on to the next slide, and we're going to be fine and dandy. All right, so the main goal that I had during February to April was getting sub 580%, right? Getting every record was sort of a side thing. Once I had about like a 5.2x, let me get an exact time for those of you who are nerds. Um, yeah, like a 528. Definitely was in the realm of I could take this category down a lot further than I previously thought. So it was early February where the grind to get sub 5 really started. And it didn't really seem like anyone else at this time could do it. Think about the roster at this point. There's Araman, who's chilling behind Andrew, not really doing much as of right now. Um, there's Andrew, who's considered retired a little bit, especially in the latter part of this intermediate period. And then no one else is really doing anything at all. Like, even Armin has interest in running it, and Andrew, I mean, it's not been that long, right? But everyone else, it just doesn't seem like they're playing the game. So it was really only me who was the sub 5 candidate. Um, Now, that doesn't mean I didn't run other categories because of the Into SC. We'll bring that up in a little bit, but um, I mean, it was mostly any percent. It was definitely a huge focus, right? It wasn't like I was just on the side getting any percent records, you know? So we have April 15th, 2021, very important date to write down. That's when the barrier broke. It was 456 in any percent by Hollow Knight myself. And I know the lines submit to their status as the best SI runner. That really seems like, wow, you're just really tooting your own horn, huh? But it's not really much of an exaggeration. If you talk about this run with many of the people who were there, um, Arm and Lily, I feel like could attest to it. It really just felt like it was the God run when it was performed, and I think even today the 456 really holds up. Like, having a sort of run like that all the way back in April 2021 is incredible. Um, but I'll stop talking about it like that. There was a 443 that happened later, but not many people cared about that because it wasn't the run that broke the barrier, right? And you can see community reaction. Only sub 5 in the last hurrah of the community. No one else would sub 5, and the community's gonna freaking die. There's gonna be no one else who cares. And this will be what kills Stranded Isle. Not exactly true though, as we are currently in a class and it's still relevant. So I'd say, maybe that was a bit exaggerated, but it's okay. All right, the Into SC. I told you I'd talk about it here in just a second. So on February 18th, 2021, all games developed by Newson, like their speedrun community, sort of merged, which at the time was basically just Stranded Isle, Fragments of Euclid, and Cyclo 8. And Cyclo 8 was just full of people from Stranded Isle, plus one or two other people, so it was not really that hard to merge them. Um, and the two comes from the two S's in Nusan speedrun community, because the S in Nusan is capitalized. That's how you correctly do it. Lily's idea to put a two in there. You're welcome. Little fun facts to sprinkle in. But yeah, as said before, three major Nusan speedrun games kind of just made it up. It had a ranking system though, or it does. It does have a ranking system. So basically, the faster you are, the higher the rank you'll get, but you can't just run one category and sweep through it all the way up to the top. You have to also spec into a few other pretty big categories. So, for example, in Stranded Isle, you could run any percent. You could get a sub 5, and only that. Your rank would be Silver 1, which is the second rank out of 6, because you also need to run some any percent, dream percent, and boss kill percent in order to get it all the way up. It's just to make sure that almost equally the categories are shared in the idea of ranking a player, which is sort of the point, right? Um, Now, there's the question of whether or not merging all of these games was a fantastic idea. Um, I mean, there were definitely short-term benefits because there were people that crossed over a little bit, and a lot of other, a lot of other games that Nusan made got runners. Damian Flow is a good example, and then much later stuff like Rain Culture would get some, and Serpent Shadow. So it definitely was helpful for games like that. Um, but now it's just basically the same as it was before, except, SI's maybe got a bit more flair in it, which I think would have happened anyway. So you can sort of decide whether or not it was a good thing to do, or if it was just something that didn't need to happen, or if it was even a bad thing. I personally feel like it was at least a good thing because a lot of other smaller games got runners, and it sort of helps keep the entire place a bit rolling. So if SI is like popping off, maybe Cyclo 8 gets a little bit more activity from that. So I think it's good that we're all in the same place. And it also means Nusan only has to join one server. Sorry, that's a spoiler, but makes things pretty convenient. All right, part 2 of the intermediate period. So, boss kill sub 4, 20% sub 40. We've already gotten 80%, sub 5. Now we're going to try and get some other ones, right? Andrew was the candidate for boss kill sub 4 because Andrew had already proven himself to be an amazing runner of boss kill and just seemed untouchable in the category for quite a while. Um, and it really says a lot when the top two, they're separated by like a second in an RNG game. So, yeah, but the problem was that Andrew at around mid-June was definitely considered like gone, retired, not doing much. Um, so it was just kind of like, well, this guy could do it, but he's not playing the video game. I also like, as I said before, I guess, like second difference in records. I mean, I had the second on Andrew. I had like a 344, or sorry, 444, Andrew a 445, but I wasn't focused on boss kill at all. I wasn't really doing much of that action, so no one was going to be beating that anytime soon. You'll know what my attention was more so focused on in a little bit. But Dream Percent sub 340, freaking no one was doing. No one was really grinding it. Armin did get a 405 after I'd gotten a 408, but that was like 2 months earlier, and it didn't really seem like anyone cared about the category anymore. So let's first talk about the one that doesn't have too much to say, which is Dream Percent sub 340. All right. So June 13th, Armin plays the category again and gets two PBs, a 403 and a 401. And I'm going slow here because it's slightly confusing. And then the very next day, I realized Armin was very close to getting the sub 4, so I got it first. And Armin's response to that was getting multiple PBs that would push him past sub 350, and I would have to get a 341 in order to beat it. Um, though I think, if I recall correctly, at the time, it was on Armin's side, like, yeah, it was like a 343. Okay, so by like 2 seconds. I had to pull it up real quick. You might even be able to see that, which would be pretty funny. But anyway, yeah, and then it stopped. Now, Andrew had gotten the first PB in like boss kill territory in like June 18th, right? So the 4 day span between this and what we'll cover on the next slide, I was trying to get sub 340 and I just could not do it. And it's still to this day, as of recording this, has not happened, which is kind of crazy. Sub 340 is still for the taking, and as said in previous notes, I do believe, like 330 was just not deemed very humanly possible. It would be like perfect. So sub 340 is really like really close to the human limit. So it'd be a monumental run to get. I guess if anyone's interested, have at it. It could be broken in the near future. I mean, it's just 2 frames off of uh, the milestone right now. So if you feel like you are good enough to try and grind to take it, I don't think anybody's going to be trying to stop you. So good luck with that. But anyways, let's get on with boss kill sub 4, which did happen. Andrew, June 18th, gets a 422. As I said before, record at the time with me was 444. So that's like over 20 seconds that Andrew just shaves off without a second thought. Now, I would constantly be trying to actually get the record back, right? So I would be grinding and I would be getting PBs, but Andrew always had the record. I could never take the record and hold on to it. Never. It was always Andrew who had it. So I wasn't getting to sub 4 first, needless to say. And Andrew would be grinding for like probably 20-ish days is a good estimate, like 23, 24 days, something like that. Like, um, yeah, just June 18th to like July 10th. So I don't feel like doing math. I think that's 23. Anyway, uh, July 10th, Andrew got a 352, which is demolishing a sub 4 barrier that is almost sub 350 territory, which is quite a ridiculous bit. 8 seconds for the first sub 4 is kind of bonkerinos. Um, and I only had a 406. I never PB'd for a while in boss kill, so it was like that for a while. I was like 14 seconds behind for Lord knows how long. The very unfortunate thing about this sub 4 though is that even if it got like a bit of notice at like when it was gotten, it's not really talked about today, which I mostly attribute to it being boss kill, which is a category that not many people care about, especially not nearly as much as say any percent, which has I would say a lot more history to it, and it's just the default category. So people just don't really notice that Andrew was absolutely goated and was at this time, um, and we're like before September. People who already know a bit of this history will know why that's an important thing to mark. But before then, it really didn't feel like anyone could compete with me because I was just a really good 80% runner. But Andrew was doing it in boss kill, you know? No one touches on that. It was like Andrew had his own category, his own domain, right? And I think that's kind of the incredible thing about Andrew as a runner. I'm kind of ranting about him a little bit because we're going to stop talking about him entirely after this. Because Andrew retires, right? Andrew quits. And I think it was mostly like a his own health thing, right? He wanted to get into other stuff than speedrunning, which is perfectly understandable, and I get it. It's still quite sad though, because it really makes you think like if he kept going, he probably could have pushed it way, way further down and prevented something that will happen in the future in these notes. But it's just the way things fall, and history is an interesting thing, isn't it? With that, with that out of the way, Armin sub five grind. Yeah, Armin grinded for sub 5 as well. It wasn't just me. But Armin would start grinding it pretty heavily after I had gotten it. So 536 was really the point where Armin getting sub 5 was like pretty doable. Many people were like, yeah, Armin could do it. 528, people definitely were thinking that, and I'm pretty sure in my canon anyway, that's when Armin was really grinding for sub 5. But like 536, it definitely was like a possibility. Um, and Armin, like mostly, I say mostly, not entirely, because there's always a bunch of complicated reasons someone does things, but quite a bit of the reason is that Armin didn't want to be like back in the 5-3x like camp, right? Didn't want to be back in the Andrew camp. Didn't want to be that far behind, like a 456, later a 443. Armin wanted to get up there and get a sub 5 and have the 4 minute, just like Hollow Knight, just like the top runner, right? Not because Armin was like, well, I'm inferior, I might as well, go for it, right? I don't think that was really the exact sentence that was going on in Armin's head, but, more so, I want to be on that level, because after that, all that matters is RNG. If I get sub 5, I'm basically exactly the same amount in skill, could be better in skill than Hollow Knight. And I'm confident a little bit. I like not fully confident because Armin is a professor here. I'm sure he could offer more insight, but from what I can tell, that was what was going through his brain, and from what he's told me a few times, and I've probably mangled somehow in my brain. But we'll move on from that. Um, Armin luck and the brute force attitude. So one by one, Armin luck. Just he was extremely unlucky and got screwed over by RNG more times than you could reasonably count. So, like, um, I don't know. Let's pick a thing like gold only, which would be like a cave surrounded by gold. You would learn this in your Stranded Isle Basics class. Um, Armin would get those pretty commonly, like 3 to 4 times in a grind session, which is definitely a bit more than usual. But sometimes would just like go for the record of gold onlys in a day and get like 5 or 6. I think the current record is like 10. By Armin, of course, or 8. It's one of those two. By Armin. So Armin just gets screwed over by RNG consistently, and then the brute force attitude. So, I think this will be in like a Stranded Isle theoreticals thing, which I'll be covering in the game route. I'll be covering EBM there. So what you just need to know right now is that EBM is a way to measure like your time that you're losing or whatever. It's a terrible explanation, but I want to summarize it in one sentence. And the meme is it's just like play the game Lamau. It's literally just playing the game, but I think more accurately it's like a pretty good metric for figuring out how much time you lost. Anyway, Armin didn't care about that and just wanted to play the game and be able to get sub 5 that way. If you play the game fast, then the bar will like just worry about itself, right? So that made it really, really hard. Not only unlucky, but also was just sort of running through and maybe losing 3 to 4 seconds on average. That's probably a bit much, but losing some time just because while playing the game is technically, I mean, it works. It's definitely a lot more um, hard, But Armin got it. September 17th, 2021, got a 458, and like you may look at that and be like, well, that's slower than even Hollow's like first one. Come on now. But it really didn't mean the time. It meant a lot more than just that. Like, as I said before, Armin's main goal was to sort of be on my level. And that 458, that 4 was an indicator that he was on my level, which meant a lot back then. So Armin like pops off. If you've ever watched the run, it's incredible. Probably the best SI pop off in my opinion. Definitely bookmark worthy. And like the community reaction sadly wasn't too much. I feel really bad for cramming this in like one slide because I feel like it really deserves to, but it's like I didn't want to make an entirely different slide just to say, yeah, people didn't care about Armin Sub 5 that much. So just make sure you write this down along with whatever's been on the slides. Um, you can rewatch the video later if you missed something, but yeah, just write down like most of the dates and stuff. Pretty much all of this intermediate period stuff you should be writing down. I see you back there, Timmy. Okay? You've just been watching TikTok for the past 10 minutes. I see you. You don't really have a work ethic. Anyway, I think that pretty much covers Arm and Sub 5 grind. And we can move on to a couple of other smaller things ish before we move on to the next sort of stage in Stranded Isles speedrunning, which gets a lot more recent. Um, let's first talk about Pog Edition. This is a bit of a detour, but I think it's worth bringing up. It's a mod that I have made to like alter the audio a bit to make the game, as it says, easier to play in longer grind sessions. So it makes the audio less like shrill per se, which it's pretty hard to do for Pico 8. Like it usually its noises if repeated long enough will kind of get ingrained into your brain, maybe cause some headaches. But Pog Edition is trying to minimize that, just though it's easier to grind for like I don't know if you're crazy 6 hours at a time. Um, when the original game you maybe only would be able to manage like 3 before you just have to take a break. And many runners have chosen it already at this point, and many would choose it in the future. It was the version that Armin got his sub 5 on, and other people in the future who would get insane times would also use Pog Edition. It's kind of just the version you'd want to use if you want to get um, a lot further in the game, I would say, because like audio is required, well, kind of required for video verification. You might as well make it good to listen to, and also the death music slaps. So that's why people usually run it. Listen, we don't. Steve, you can like go out into the hallway if you need to cough that bad. We don't need to be disrupting class over. I mean, I know you can't help it, but don't worry, we'll record. You'll be good, okay? Just like go to the nurse or something. Anyway, and like I've lost my train of thought. Mods altogether, not just Pog Edition, kind of became a lot more abundant. There wasn't really that many other than the Perfect Drops mod before this, and now there's Pog Edition, which helps your audio. There's a bunch of more meme mods. There's the menuless mod, which just removes your menu almost. I mean, it's just kind of invisible. Then there's the Among Us mod, which does as it you probably could assume it does, and the Impossible mod, which is developed by someone we'll talk about in the next slide. But nevertheless, there's definitely a lot more modding going on in the intermediate era because people were less focused on the runs, right? And before we go on to the final slide here, quick detour. I would, if you want to summarize it in a sentence, write this down. The intermediate period was like people who had already gotten good times in the game and already were really good were just honing in their craft. I was continuing to lower any percent. Armin was continuing to also lower his any percent and dream percent. Well, I guess I was lowering dream percent too, I forgot. And Andrew was constantly lowering his boss kill to get like insane milestones. That's what the three of us were doing. And at this point, all three of us had pretty much stopped running the game. There may be like a stray PB or two, but after Armin sub fives, it's like none of us are really doing anything, right? And there may be a few other people who are doing things, but just not really that much. It was a lot more quiet. So, in a sentence, in case you missed it, I'll say it again. Big runners, uh, honing their skills. That's it. That's all you need. There were fewer because it was basically just me, Armin, and Andrew, but you know, we were there. All right, final slide. Let's get this done. I really don't want to hit the 30-minute mark. Champion Island. You may be asking, why the frick are we talking about a Google Doodle when we are doing a history class on Stranded Isle? This does not make sense. It'll make sense in a second. Or you're reading ahead and you figured it out. So, I ran this game about in July. Um, and basically just July. I mean, I would come back a little bit in September, but that's not too important. What you need to write down is that Champion Island had a few runners named Fibble and Czar. Both of them wanted to run the game a little bit. They would join the N2SC and try out the game. Fibble just didn't really get into it. Sorry, didn't really get into it that much, and also would not be recruited into big business, though the three of us obviously tried. I guess that's also a note you can put down. Actually, now that I think about it, if you really care, you can make a note. April, big business is basically finalized, but I don't think that's too necessary of a note. Just, big business is big business now. Anyway, Czar. Czar is a different case than Fibble. Czar kind of, wormed his way in, made the impossible mod, maybe got like a 7-minute time and then just a 6-minute time casually, but over time would become a lot more prominent in the game. And yes, would also be recruited into big business, which forms the big business we know today. So I yoinked Czar from Champion Island basically, and there was an attempted yoinkage with Fibble that just didn't work out. All right, all right. That should cover all of it. In the intermediate period, there's definitely a lot more finer details that happened here. There was some like minor category stuff happening, but it would just be, I think, trying to cover all the minor categories along with main categories would be a bit hard, unless it's just like a record thing. But yeah, that would pretty much sum it up. So next, we're going to be talking about, it's basically the Tsar Era. That's not the definitive title, but there's pretty much just a month or two of Tsar, with a few other sprinklings of runners, but Tsar was the main guy who was grinding runs, right? So I can't wait to talk about that because that'll be definitely more up-to-date info, and we'll almost catch you up on everyone new, which is great. We definitely have a couple of newer people right now, but Czar's like the big newer guy, along with Ouija Spider, and we'll be getting one of them knocked out, maybe tomorrow. So that'll be nice. I have no assignment for you all today. Just do the extra credit thing if you want. Just make sure you get these notes down. It's like 30 minutes of notes, so assigning something would be evil. And that's pretty much it. I hope Steve ends up alive, and I hope, Timmy, you did get all that down. I'm just gonna go, get some food, I guess.